Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this workshop. My name is Andrea. I am speaking from Turin in the northwest of Italy. I work as a management consultant. You can see my full profile in the outline of this session. And tonight I'm going to speak with you about something I think is really a crucial skill for every leader: time management. I'm not alone in this workshop. Victoria from UK is helping with the technical side. I'm really grateful for her. So if you have any issue, you can write in the chat and she will assist you. If you have any question on the topic we are going to explore, we are going to have a Q&A time at the end of the session. You probably already downloaded or checked the outline in the LF app. We will cover all the topics you can find in it. I won't cover all biblical references, since they will also function as a suggestion for further investigation and reflection on your side, together with a couple of books I recommend on this topic. Before jumping into the specific theme we are exploring tonight together, I would like to reflect for a while on the reasons, on the motivation of this workshop. Why spending an hour or so on the topic of time management? More precisely, why do we need to use our time well? I just want to add one biblical answer to this question. Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. This is a strong reason, isn't it? And we probably don't think to this so often. The days are evil. It may refer to the evil in the world, or the last days, or even the limitedness of time. I won't do a full exegesis on this text, but I think it's really useful if we consider this as we live our daily life. So let's start looking at our theme. How can we make the best use of our time? A good starting point definitely is understanding our priorities. I know this may be a challenge for many of us. Maybe we are in a situation that where we don't have a clear understanding of where is our priority. This is a challenge. This is a broad theme. I won't explain, I won't focus on this session on this topic, but you can find a very good insight in a couple of the books you find in the outline. What I really want to do tonight is exploring this question: how to make our priorities happen daily. How can we really spend our time on what we know is more valuable, more important? And this is a challenge, isn't it? Honestly speaking, this is my challenge. I do know my priorities. I do know what is more valuable in my work, in my ministry, for my family, but I do struggle to spend my time on that. Often I don't find the time for my priorities, but often I also have the time, but I struggle to spend time on the most important things. Why this? Why clarity, understanding of our priorities is not enough? The reason is in how we function as human beings, in our responsiveness. This is a broad theme, I know, but let me just explain a key concept briefly, because it will serve as a foundation for all the time I'm going to tell you about time management. As human beings, we do not act in a vacuum, and our actions, and also how we use our time, is not only the result of our intentions, our will. We are responsive to external stimulus, everything around us in the world we see, we feel, we hear. And we are also responsive to our personal condition. our emotional, physical, spiritual state. And these two are actually connected. As we read in this book, it's the one I suggest, external pressures are significant, but they only lead to sin because of our sinful desires. In other words, external pressures impact on our behavior via our hearts. And we know that the heart is the center of our being. We need to guard it because we are responsive to external stimulus and personal condition. And this is true in every area of our life, in our time management as well. This is a key idea. This is the basis of all that I'm going to share with you tonight. Because of that, when we think about how we use our time, what we do and how we do, we need to be aware that there are many factors that influence our productivity. Some of them are positive. They help us spending time on our priorities. And some of them are negative. So, as I often say, time management is not just about time. It's being aware of all these factors, manage them to maximize their positive impact. And what I want to share with you tonight are a couple of reflections on four main factors. The most significant one, according to my experience and also in the experience of people I worked with or lived with. The first one is attention, the ability to focus on something or someone. An importance of where we do put our focus is a clear principle in the Bible. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, Hebrews chapter 12. Set your hearts on things above, set your minds on things above. We are called to focus on Jesus because the direction of our gaze determines the direction of our path. And this is true from the big goals and projects of our life to the minor, smaller things of our life. Let me give you an example. Maybe one day you were in your office, you were working on a big project for your organization, and you quickly checked the notifications on your smartphone. But you got that message, an urgent request, or something very interesting. And you actually came back to your priority of the day minutes, if not hours later. Attention is a precious resource. Distraction can reduce our productivity. Every time we switch from a task to another, we lose some efficiency, but can also change the task we are working on. And this has become more and more a challenge since many of our activities and communication have moved recently into the digital world. Let me just show you briefly the results of a survey I made in preparation to this workshop. Emails and messages are a very important part in everyone's workflow. The number of messages we receive is really high, can be really high. And often notice that people receive a notification every time they got a new message. My personal recommendation on this is to protect as much as possible your attention. Choose carefully for what and from who you really need to be disturbed when you are working, when you are studying, when you are talking to someone. You can fine-tune your system according to your needs. Maybe you can set specific notification for every device, for every app, also for every contact. And you can use often do not disturb mode so that only some calls can interrupt you when you are working, when you need to focus. Distractions cannot only be external, but it can only be internal from our mind. An idea, the thought of something unfinished, a request we received. This can be a distraction that it can make us more difficult to focus. two brief suggestions on this. The first one, you can find it in almost every time management book. Write them down in a reliable and trusted system. It's amazing how doing this consistently can help us to focus on the task at hand. And the second suggestion that you will probably won't find in time management books, write them down and pray about it. One of the benefits of prayer definitely is the peace of God in our minds and hearts that help us to focus on relationship and tasks. A second factor is planning. On this, I see that there are people more prone to planning, to scheduling, or even very tightly, and others who almost refuse planning since it may prevent spontaneity or taking advantage of opportunities. Also, I should say that planning has become more and more difficult in these uncertain times we are living. But I think that a proper and balanced planning done following the guidelines we find in the Bible can really be useful and can be also a great help in spending our time on our priorities. Let me show you this. Firstly, we need to understand that there are two levels of planning. Firstly, defining what to do, and second, defining when to do it. When it happens, for example, that we are not making progress on a significant project, the reason maybe is the fact that we haven't understood clearly what we need to make progress on that project, the specific next action we need to perform. Brainstorm, collecting information, write to someone, analyze data, and so on. On this, planning can be really useful. We can use a simple paper-based list or a more sophisticated task management app and write down not only a collection of words and unprocessed items, but clear reminders of what we need to make progress on that project. Trust me, if you decide before doing something on a project, what you will actually do is really, really effective. Another situation is that when we always postpone something that we know is important, we aim to do it as soon as possible, but the right time doesn't come. And week after week, we realize we haven't spent time on that task. Again, planning can be really useful. If we decide when and where we will do that task, it will make easier. We actually spend time on that. So we can use our agenda, our calendar with this purpose. Of course, we need to be aware of not putting too much on our agenda. We need to keep margin. Another tool I want to mention about planning is what I call ideal week. That is a graphic representation of the optimal distribution of time on a weekly basis. Of course, it's ideal. No week will be actually like the one we designed. But having this sort of grid is really helpful in managing our agenda, filtering opportunities, protect time for what is important, and even often to say no to less important things. The third factor I want to mention is energy. I think we all agree that when we have a low energy, either physical, emotional, or mental, firstly, we are less efficient in what we do. It simply takes more time to do the usual things. But when we have a lower condition, we also struggle to do more challenging things. This is my experience. Actually, one of the reasons when I have time for my priorities, I don't spend my time on them, often is the fact that I don't have energy for those more challenging tasks. On this, the first thing I want to remember is that God knows our human weakness. God knows we have limited energy. And that's the reason he designed a 6 days work week. We don't want to be legalistic, but it's important to remember we need a proper time off every week. And it's also significant how Jesus was sensitive to the need of rest of his disciples, especially after an intense season of work. It's useful on this theme to distinguish between an overall level of energy and a variable one. Let me explain with you a couple of graphs. The overall level of energy is the average level we have in a certain period of time, a day or a week. And that level is the effect of all that we experienced in the past, all that we lived, all that we faced the day before, the weeks before, even the months before. And it's very important that we are aware of our actual overall level of energy so that we can adjust our schedule, our engagements accordingly to prevent burnout. Maybe we need to invest more time in rest if we had a very intense season. While when we are talking about a variable level of energy, we are reminded of the fact that it's normal that our energy changes during the day or during the week. Talking about the day, it's called a circadian rhythm. And it's very normal that in a certain part of the day, maybe the morning, but we can be different in this, it's easier for us to focus. We have more energy, more motivation, while we have less energy in the afternoon or in the night. Again, it's really important being aware of it so that we can schedule our engagements, our tasks accordingly. And again, in this, the tool I mentioned before can be really useful. How can we keep an high energy level? For example, by scheduling our week physical exercise or how long we need to sleep. It's normal that sometimes we can miss morning run or go to bed later. But if we have this schedule, we will realize that sooner and we can reschedule our days, our week accordingly. Again, if you are aware of our variable level of energy, our cycle, we can schedule more difficult and challenging tasks, like, for example, sermon preparation, when we have more focus, while leaving errands or meetings or other tasks when we have a lower condition of energy. The fourth and final factor I want to mention is network. It's again a clear principle in the Bible that people influence us. Just a couple of verses. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise. Bad company ruins good morals. People around us influence our values, our principles, what we think is more important, and definitely can influence how we use our time. And they do that also by having an effect on the factors I mentioned so far. Let me give you a couple of examples, and I will take as a reference a colleague, but it's definitely the same with a friend, with a relative, with a boss. A colleague can help you stay focused on your priorities by asking how the project is going, by offering you help, by avoiding interrupting you when you are working on that important task. A colleague can help you planning and following your plan, by respecting deadlines, by informing you when something is going late, and so on. A colleague can boost your energy with his presence, with his attitude towards issues and challenges, with his kind and nice words. And remember that this happens not only when we are physically together, like in the office or in a meeting. We are influenced by other people also from all that we see, read, and listen in the digital world. If this is true, what can we do? As Christians, we are called to love everyone, to be a neighbor, to be at peace with each other. And of course, there are also situations we are together in relations with people, we can change, at least in the short term. But within this limitation, we can choose. We can choose intentionally the people we want to spend more time with, and we can choose that according to our goals and priorities. We can ask ourselves, who can really help me in this project that is so important? Who can give me encouragement and strength and energy? Whose presence can help me be productive in this task? I do think the answer to this question may really have a big impact on your life. It may change the meetings you decide to attend. It may change the place you do your work. It may change even the people you follow on social media. Now it's time for putting into practice the things we have been seeing so far. So again, it's your turn. I'm inviting you to think about the things we have been seeing, the things you have been talking to the chat, and choose one single action to implement. I will give you a couple of minutes. Of course, it will be for you. I suggest to write down in a place where you will be able to see this thing tomorrow, and reflect on the things we have been seeing. Reflect on what helps and what doesn't help spending your time on your priorities. Maybe something to change, something to start doing, something to stop doing. And while you do this, consider this verse. Consider asking God's wisdom, God's help in choosing this single action to implement. So I give you just a couple of minutes and then a final word before a Q&A time. Before the final Q&A time, I would just want to add a final word as a conclusion to this talk. As you may have seen, I'm a big fan of productivity. But, and I say this to myself first, I do want to be aware of what I call productivity trap. The risk of doing more and more to increase our efficiency so that we can do more, but losing efficacy, forgetting what are the most important and valuable things. And there are two stories in the gospel I want to mention that are very significant on this. The first one is the story of Martha, an hyper-productive woman serving Jesus, serving his disciples. But what did Jesus tell her? Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Maria has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. And another story is the one of the rich man in the parable. Again, an hyper-productive and successful man. But God himself told him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? As you can see, these two texts ends with a reference to a moment in the future when something will be taken and something will remain. And a powerful question in reflecting how we use our time can be this one. What will remain? What will remain of all the things I am doing, I'm involved in, I'm busy with? What will actually leave an impact, leave a legacy? What people will remember of me? What will remain at the end of the season you are living Maybe you are a student. What will remain at the end of these university years? Maybe you are a pastor. What will remain in your church from your ministry? Maybe you are a father or a mother of small kids. What will remain when they will be grown up? Maybe you are involved and working hard in a big project, in a big event. What will remain when this will be completed? May God our Father give you and give to all of us wisdom and courage to make the right choices and make the best use of our time.